Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday, September 20th. Today is day 350. I'm currently en route from Seattle to Seoul. Late Thursday night, last night, Israeli fighter jets attacked 100 Hezbollah missile launchers, some of which were primed and ready to fire at Israel, the IDF said. And at about 1 o'clock this afternoon, Eastern time, Friday, the Associated Press News reported that an Israeli airstrike killed at least 14 people in Beirut, wounding dozens more. The rare airstrike on Lebanon's capital escalated a days-long Israeli assault on Hezbollah amid fears of an all-out war between Israelis and Hezbollah. It was the first such attack on Lebanon's capital in months. It came shortly after Hezbollah pounded in Israel's north with more than 140 rockets. As you know, Tuesday and Wednesday, there were the pager and walkie-talkies that exploded all over Lebanon, and we saw Lebanon respond with hundreds of rockets that were fired at Israel. A Washington Post summary of the situation in the Middle East today summarized the situation, saying that a broader Israel-Lebanon war now seems inevitable. Diplomats looked on in dismay, and the Egyptian foreign minister said that this act of grave escalation, speaking about those pager and walkie-talkie explosions, will lead the region to what we have been warning against, which is an all-out war, which will turn the region into scorched earth. While we have heard regularly over past weeks that there have been Israeli flyovers, it's the norm kind of in Beirut. Today's bombing at the capital has further escalated the violence between the IDF and Hezbollah. Reuters reports an Israeli strike on a building in the Daiyeh neighborhood of Beirut killed Ibrahim Akil. This is quite significant. He's Hezbollah's head of operations. He's the acting head of the elite Radwan force. The IDF later confirmed that he was killed in the strike. Akil was also wanted by the U.S. There's a $7 million reward for information about him due to his role in the 1983 bombings at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut and the barrack attacks, and the attacks on the U.S. Marine barracks, as well as involvement in taking U.S. and German hostages in Lebanon. Following the strikes, rocket sirens blared across northern Israel in communities. Hezbollah later claimed it successfully hit an IDF base in northern Israel. And earlier today, there were about 200 rockets that were fired from Lebanon into Israel's north. There were several fires that were started. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that there was no U.S. involvement in the Israeli strike. He said, "We let the IDF speak for themselves on their operations." He said that he was certainly not aware of or pre-notified about the strikes, which makes sense. He probably wouldn't have security clearance at that level. We know that the U.S., or at least it was communicated that they were not informed about the explosion devices and the radios and the walkie-talkies, but it seems unlikely that Israel would bomb Beirut without notifying the U.S. And we also know that U.S. officials said yesterday that Israel warned Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in a call on Tuesday that a military operation was going to take place in Lebanon, but they did not provide details. Secretary Austin postponed his visit to Israel that was scheduled for early next week due to these escalations and the fighting on the border between Israel and Lebanon. And while we're paying attention to all of this, the numbers of civilians that have been killed in Lebanon on the southern border and in Beirut, those numbers are adding up. Of course, they've increased drastically this week. There have been a small number of deaths in Israel on the north border. There continue to be more than 100,000 people in South Lebanon that are displaced. There continue to be 60,000 people in North Israel that are displaced. In Gaza, there were at least 34 Palestinians killed in unrelenting Israeli attacks across the enclave, and at least 13 Palestinians and 3 children were killed in Israeli airstrikes on 2 homes in Rafah city. In addition, in the West Bank, the city of Qabatia, 6 Palestinians and 18 others were injured in that raid that we discussed yesterday. According to the governor of Jenin, Reuters reported that today. And in response to that video that I talked about yesterday, the video published that shows the 3 IDF soldiers that dragged a body and threw it off a roof during a raid in Kabatia, another video appears to show an IDF bulldozer that was picking up bodies from the scene. In response to the video, the IDF said that this is a serious incident that does not conform to the values of the IDF and what is expected of their soldiers. So those incidents are currently under investigation. In Syria, reports were that 1 person was killed and wounded in a strike attributed to Israel that targeted a car near the Damascus airport. And an Iranian militia in Iraq affiliated with Hezbollah later announced that one of its members was killed Friday morning in a strike in Syria. In terms of hostage negotiations, on one hand, a senior advisor of Netanyahu presented the Biden administration a renewed proposal for the ceasefire negotiations, according to CNN. The reactions have widely been that it won't move any forward. And on the other hand, senior U.S. officials told the Wall Street Journal that they don't expect Israel and Hamas to reach a ceasefire deal while Joe Biden is president. The officials insisted that the U.S. won't stop pursuing an agreement. The 2 sides are not willing to accept a current ceasefire framework, so no deal is imminent on the horizon. So there's a lot of pessimism in that regard. Some officials noted as a significant problem the shifting aims and demands on both sides. In terms of the United Nations, Netanyahu will depart for the U.S. on Tuesday. He's scheduled to speak at the UN General Assembly. And following the historic vote this week at the General Assembly, the call for the end of the occupation within the next 12 months, Palestine plans to follow up on adopting that resolution and demanding that Israel remove its unlawful presence in Gaza and the West Bank within the year, said Ambassador Mansour to the UN Security Council yesterday. Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman Reuters reported that Saudi Arabia will not recognize Israel without a Palestinian state. And in the US, Rashida Tlaib criticized her colleagues for the silence on thousands that have been killed in Israel's war on Gaza after a 600-page document with the names of those killed was made public. On Tuesday of this week, His Beatitude Cardinal Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, paid a solidarity visit to Jenin and assessed the damage that was caused in that recent 10-day operation there. He was accompanied by Bishop William Shamali, who, if you've participated in any of the solidarity activities that we've done, you would have seen his videos. So continue in your efforts. That's the update of the last 24 hours coming from the Middle East. Pray for peace, work for justice. Amen.